Hello and welcome back to another episode of Raw and Real with Stefanie Fernandes. I'm Stefanie, your podcast host, rapid transformational therapist, and founder of Your Freedom Program. I work with women who want to take back their life, returning to themselves on their healing journey. In this podcast, we give stage to women who overcame adversity and trauma or difficult phases in their life. Be ready to get real emotions from real people. The stories we share here are to inspire women just like you that anything is possible. In today's episode, we will be talking about the art of failing in business and rising again. Today's guest is Jaclyn Gallo. Jaclyn spent over $50,000 on 2 business ideas that failed. Today, she's a life coach for women and best-selling author, a TEDx speaker, and host of the popular podcast, Spark Your Light. Hi, Jaclyn, and welcome to the show.
Thank you so much for having me here.
I mean, your introduction is impressive. I could just go on and on, like you have spoken at over 125 corporations, conferences, universities in 7 countries.
It's an honor. It's an honor. And I'm so grateful to be able to share this message with so many people.
Thank you so much for coming forward and sharing your story with us today. I'm so excited to have you. So at the age of 21, you started your business from your dorm room at Georgetown University. Please tell us your story today.
Yeah. So I was in college and I thought that I had the dream vision for my life mapped out. And I started pursuing that. So I landed an internship doing marketing, which was one of my majors. I was double major in marketing and international business. And I thought, I'm going to work in marketing. I'm going to climb the corporate ladder. And that's my dream life. And about halfway through that summer internship, I was wondering why my happiness felt capped. I was happy, which is the weird thing, because I think a lot of people expect me to say that I was miserable, it was so horrible. And this is how I came to these realizations to start putting myself out there in business and building successful and failed businesses along the way. But really what it was this feeling of, is it possible to be at, let's say, 100 in terms of happiness? And I don't mean feeling happy all the time. I mean that you have the normal human ups and downs, but throughout them, you feel like you love your life and you love your work, and the bad things, the hard times, the challenges that life throws at you are worth it because you're doing something you love. And I didn't feel that way. I felt like I liked it and I was enjoying it, but something was missing. So that led me to wanting to start my own business, but I didn't have an idea. So I wasn't an entrepreneur that had this genius idea I wanted to bring to life. I just knew I wanted to be an entrepreneur. I had this kind of ping that would be the thing that would really help me find fulfillment in life. So I would write down business ideas in a notebook every morning. And I decided that I was just going to pick one and go with it, because how else was I going to get started? So I gave myself a deadline. I decided that when I moved back into college for my senior year, I was going to pick the best idea on the list and get started with it. So at the time, the best idea, or the idea that I thought was best, was to make these plates that encouraged healthy eating. And I called all of these factories, and the minimum order quantity was going to be about $10,000 from like anywhere that was within my price range. And so I waitressed on campus. I saved up my money. I borrowed a little bit from my parents, and I placed this initial order. So long story short, the plates were an epic failure. There were a lot of problems that I didn't foresee with them. And I'm really grateful that chapter finally closed. That was back in 2016. And last week I donated them to local families in need where I live in Philadelphia. So I was glad to give them to people who can use them. But it was really hard to spend $10,000 on inventory that never sold, to let it sit in my grandmother's garage for, that's a long time. I don't even know, 2016, 2022, 5 years. And the only reason I finally closed the chapter is because my grandmother passed away, and the family is selling her home where I was storing them. So I was so young, I didn't even have anywhere to go. And my grandma was like, you can keep them in our garage. So that was my first failure, and it was hard. But I always say the first failure isn't the hardest because people expect you to fail. Failure is normal in entrepreneurship. I listened to so many stories of people who had failed. So I felt like, okay, this is okay, Jaclyn, you're young, you can figure this out. The second failure was the really hard one because I felt like I had now failed twice, and maybe I wasn't meant to be an entrepreneur. Maybe I would never figure it out. The second failure was I raised a good bit of money, 20,000 on Kickstarter. I got another 15,000 in a pitch contest, another 5,000 from another contest. So, you know, a good bit of funding to build an app. So I wanted to take the idea from the plates of health and wellness and turn it into an app. And long story short, I hired developers, even though I had raised a good bit of money. Most like professional development companies were charging multi-six figures to develop an app. And so the only people that I was able to hire were college students. And they were also just getting started and figuring it out. And together we learned that the app I wanted to build was very complex and had a lot of problems. And when I beta tested it, it was crashing, it had bugs. I was getting feedback from users that it wasn't working, and I was out of money. So I either had to go raise more money or let this idea go. And in my heart, I knew at that time that I wasn't meant to be a tech CEO. I was meant to, I didn't know what at that time, but I knew it wasn't that. That's all I could say. I didn't know. I was in the thick of it, but I knew it wasn't that. And that was the really tough failure. That was when I really wanted to give up. And so I turned to personal development, started reading books. I felt depressed. I'm like, okay, I need to figure this out. I'm living at home with my parents. I've been out of college for a few years now. I don't have any money. All my friends are, starting to thrive in their careers. And here I am like behind. And I came across a question in one of the books I was reading, and it said, what is working? And that was really profound for me because all I was thinking about is what wasn't working and how nothing was working. Nothing was going my way, and I was never going to be successful. And when I looked back, I realized that the one thing that I was really good at was speaking. And I had been speaking at colleges, sharing my story of struggling with an eating disorder in college. And that's why I started this wellness company in the first place. And I was doing it for marketing. I was doing it to get women to beta test the app that I was building. I wasn't doing it. I didn't even call it a speech. I called it like a free educational workshop, right? But I realized then when I answered that question that that was something I was really good at and that I was getting great feedback on. So I decided to go all in on that and just focus on being a speaker. And this was at the end of 2018. I started 2019 and I just hit the ground running, and I started booking myself honestly pretty instantly. And I think that's a sign that you're in alignment when things start to come really quick. For a long time, for so many years, nothing came, nothing was working. And that's because I was being redirected to the work I was meant to do in the world. And when I talk to people, I tell them this story, it's pretty obvious to hear, like, this is my soul's work. This is what I'm meant to share with women. So it's such a beautiful journey of getting here. And while it's hard to know that I spent so much money on things that didn't work out, and I spent so many years, I'm so blessed to have that. And if I could just encourage more women to fail, throw yourself in, knowing that everything's happening in your highest good and you're going to get there to where you're meant to be, that's the message that I really want to share today.
I love how you turned to your inside, like to yourself, to see how you can improve the next try. Like, how can you make the next try work? And not by looking into a different sector. Okay, you tried the healthy eating, you tried the app, none of these two things were working. So I love how you looked into yourself to see how you can grow and develop so that the next thing is working. What can you give to the next thing? Because you are your business, right? It's everything that you put in, you will get out. Like, how did you come about this? Like, how did this idea that self-development and growth is the next step for you after your second failure?
Yeah, to be honest, I don't think I realized what you were saying at that time. Like, I don't think that hit me. I think it was sort of like, I feel really down. I feel sad. I feel like I might give up on my dreams, but I don't want to. And even if I do decide to give up on my dreams and let's say go back into the workplace and get a job, I'd like to be happy. That it was just like an internal desire to learn how do I feel happy? What needs to change because something's not working in my life right now. And in doing that self-development, I started to build the self-confidence to know I don't have to give up on my dreams and I am capable. And then that was kind of the springboard to realize that then at that time, it started to click everything you just said, that my internal world really was responsible for so much of the external results. And if I focused on that and I watered that, then I could create the results I wanted. And then I could teach other people to do the same. And that's kind of how it came to be. But I think when you're in the thick of it, you're looking for anything to take your pain away. I was in pain and I wanted to feel happier and I wanted to feel capable. And so I turned to these self-help books that, I saw on the internet and I read about in blog posts that people said helped them because I was willing to try anything. And I think sometimes that rock bottom where you're willing to try anything can be such a blessing, even though it's like horrible and awful when you're in it. Looking back, it's always something that usually was a springboard to the next thing and the next opportunity that's going to get you closer to where you want to go.
Mm. And you said that you were focusing on the things that worked instead of, ruminating about what didn't work. And we all know those phases and moments when we sit in our self-doubt and it seems like we cannot do this. Like, there's no way I can do this. It proved twice I'm not made for that. So when you focus on the positive, what works, how did you incorporate that and how did you transform that into action and tangible outcomes?
Yeah, I decided that if I put my attention and energy into what was working, it would snowball, it would build momentum. I saw that happening. I mean, if you think about your life and think about things that have gone well for you, most people have one area of their life they can say has worked out for them. Maybe they always like had a lot of luck in relationships and they have a really great marriage. Maybe they were always like really good at school and education came easy to them. Maybe they were always like really good at managing their finances and budgeting and building their wealth. And that kind of always came easily to them. So when we think about our lives and think about things that have worked in the past, it makes so much logical sense. And logic is something that's really nice to grasp onto when you're in that low moment, because when you come in with like spiritual or more beliefs, even filled with hope, that feels so far. And for me and for anyone, really, this is just like how our emotions work. It's really hard to skip levels. This is something that Abraham Hicks calls the emotional guidance system, where essentially there's a scale from the really high emotions to the really low emotions. And the easiest way to get to the top is to go like one step at a time. So when I was down there, something like logical felt much more realistic for me to grasp onto. So the logic of if I just focus on the things that are working, they're going to keep working and it's going to get bigger and better. Just like, for example, when I focused on school and my grades, things just worked out for me. I got into a great college. I graduated. I had this great degree, right? Because I focused on that. And I know that I'm a committed person. And this goes back to your identity. And if you don't, you have to lean into the identity you do have that you feel good about. So even though maybe I didn't feel good about the fact that I could be successful or that I was a good entrepreneur, I believed I was a committed person. I believed I didn't give up on things. I had evidence of that in my life at different times, whether it was in my childhood or my teenage years. And so I used that as a springboard to say, okay, basically, if I follow this plan, I think it's going to work. And when we approach it with that energy, it's so simple. But it does, or it leads us to the next idea or the next realization or the next redirection in a positive light, getting us closer and closer. And so it was really just that simple decision. Like, if I do this, I think it's going to work and I'm willing to commit to it. And it did.
Amazing. Now you work as a coach helping women to realize their dreams. Did you have someone that helped you?
Yes. So I've had so many people who have helped me. I always talk about how success is a combination of yourself, of people, and of like the spiritual side, God, or whatever you believe in. And the people category has been really, really big for me. And, I always had mentors. Even when I was in college, I would go to like the Student Center for Entrepreneurship and I would ask, can anyone help me with this? So I always had people helping me. I had mentors that, I was connected with through just people I knew that would like have coffee with me and give me advice based on their careers. But it got formal when I hired my first life coach, which was at that time of the world falling apart. I think at the time I had made the decision that I was going to focus on my business and try to do the speaking. So I had come to some sort of like direction on my own. And then this woman happened to cross my path. It was this beautiful opportunity where her coaching was discounted rate because I also had like no money at the time. So I was able to hire her with the little money I did have. And it was so profound for me to work with someone who was asking about like what I wanted and where I wanted to go. And it was so life-changing to step out of this little box of like this specific business that was supposed to work and instead focus on like, how do I want to feel every day? And like, what are my core values for my life and what's important to me? And I realized when working with her that what I really wanted was to just have financial freedom, to have time freedom, to feel successful and to do work that fulfilled me. And so that could be in like any way. It didn't have to look like this one business. And so that actually gave me closure to let go of some of those past ideas that didn't work out for me. And since then, I've hired many coaches over the years and really believe in the work that you can get from coaching and mentorship because it's really positively impacted me.
Yeah, we tend to think we need to be able to do it all alone. But
yeah.
I don't think that that's very healthy. And it's turning quite to the opposite of, not really knowing where to go. And sometimes we just need someone that guides us back to ourselves, as you were saying, to your values and releasing those ideas of where you think, where your conscious mind thinks I need to go to. But actually, how do you want to feel once you are there? And then you know how to achieve that by taking certain steps that a coach helps you to outline. And I would like you to tell me a bit more about how you work with women and like who can work with you.
Yeah. So I tend to attract women who are ambitious, who have big goals for their career, whether it be in building a business or in, some other big dream for their career. And we work on bringing their dreams to life. So everything from, the mindset to the actionable steps, it's really holistic. I believe in all the parts. I think they all matter. And I think the beautiful benefit about focusing on your like big dreams and goals is it's that quote. I don't know who said it. I wish I did. I should have these things like ingrained in my mind, but there's that quote about how like when the tide comes in, like all the boats rise. And like, that's really what I see for a lot of my clients. They might be like their number one priority when they come to me is like, I want to build this business or I want to like achieve this dream. But all of the other areas of their life, like their health and their relationships, also rise because they become a better version of themselves. They become more committed. And so it's really beautiful to see how like our life is not in boxes. And when we focus on like improvement in one area, it really does impact all the areas.
I love that you take this holistic approach because a lot of us, I can just talk about myself.
Yeah.
When I was in corporate world, I saw myself as a different person at work than at home. And that didn't align. And this is when I started to feel very disconnected from myself. And when you look at your life as a whole, you are one person and you need to bring the positive energy to work and still have energy afterwards to take care of yourself, your kids, your family,
Yeah.
like your hobbies, like the self-care that we often talk about, then only then you can really live a constantly happy life. And that, as you said in the beginning, that doesn't mean that you don't have lows, that you don't have, you know, some of those uncomfortable negative feelings, because they're just part of life. But when, I love how you see your client as a whole, and to see how the work they do when working on their business spreads out to other parts of their lives, and they really leverage from that. Isn't that amazing to see how people rise then in all areas? What do
It's
you take from
amazing.
that?
Yeah. And it's even more amazing to see the impact it has and think about on everyone else around them, from like the really direct ones, like for example, their kids or their spouse. That's beautiful because like, and I see this in my relationship. Like my husband is a different person because of the personal development that I do. And he's felt inspired and he's done his own personal development and he listens to podcasts and he reads books to learn and grow because of the work I do. And I know that impact happens for other people. And I also think about the impact of like, let's say, my client's daughter's teacher, because now when she goes to parent teacher conferences, she brings a different energy. She brings a different perspective. And maybe that teacher is overwhelmed because there's a pandemic and everything has been changed. I have my sister's a teacher, some of my close friends. I know it's been really, really hard with the pandemic, and just the way that you show up and the energy you bring and the way you speak, and it just, one thing you say can completely change someone's day, which then can change their week, their month, their year. And so I think about like the ripple effect of when women change, when anyone changes, but I love women because most of my clients are women. The ripple effect is to like millions and millions of people. And that's why I think like this work is so powerful. And for anyone listening, like just doing self-development and just working on yourself, it not only impacts you, but it impacts everyone in your world. So remember that it is worth it to take the time to do it.
Yeah, it might not be easy, and it's not a straightforward road, isn't it? So there's a
No.
lot of bumps on the road, but it's definitely worth it.
Yeah. And when you commit to getting through those bumps, I think it's a commitment you have to make ahead of time. Like, I mean, I have a client that her road in the past year was so bumpy. She really wanted to leave her corporate job. She didn't even know what she wanted to do. Um, and it was really hard. And there were some moments where I thought, is she even going to continue like doing coaching? Because like, I'm not sure if she even like wants to keep committing, but she kept showing up and showing up and showing up and showing up. And she just left her job and she's like so excited about what's next for her. And yeah, it's just so beautiful to see like if you just commit, the bumps might come, probably will come. They come for everyone, like, but it's worth it.
Yeah. What do you think from your experience in your work? What is one very common reason for women to not follow their dreams and their purpose?
Yeah, I think the biggest thing is they either don't think what they want is possible for them, or they think that it's going to be um so difficult that the pain of like the journey and the road ahead, with no guarantee, with like the possibility that they're going to make it, it's like so low, they feel that that pain is stronger than the pain of their day to day. And humans move away from pain, so they just stay. And the biggest thing to breaking this is recognizing that like our perspective is so limited and the opportunities are always out there, but we can't always see them. And the most beautiful example I have is actually my dad. So when I was a kid, and I was probably in like high school, and people would ask, what's your dream job? What do you want to do when you grow up? I always wondered why no one asked my parents those things. And I would come home from school and I would ask them, like, what's your dream job? And my mom would always say her dream job was to be a stay-at-home mom. And she did stay home for a lot of my childhood, which was really special. And my dad, who was especially miserable at work, he worked a very physical job where he worked 60-hour weeks. He was always very tired. always in a rush to try to get to every game and never miss anything of mine or my sister's, yet always physically exhausted doing it all. He said his dream job was to be a school bus driver. And I was like, really? And he's like, yeah, like just sounds like so relaxing and fun to be with the kids and all these things. And I was like, why don't you do it? And he said that it's not possible for him. And he had a few defined reasons. The first reason was that he won't get paid enough money. He'll make less money than he makes now, and he won't be able to support our family. The second reason was it's a part-time job, so there won't be any health insurance, and he needs health insurance. And the third reason was that he doesn't have the commercial driving license, and like he doesn't have any way to get training and all these things. So for years since that day, I would research opportunities, try to like get him to look into things. And he was so set and believed fully in his body that what he wanted was not out there or wouldn't work out for him, right? It wasn't, maybe it was out there somewhere else in the world, but not where we live in Philadelphia and all these things, right? And this is exactly how so many women feel, right? It's not going to work out for them. It's not possible for them. It doesn't exist, or no one's ever done that before, or that's not going to work out for me. And it's not true. And with my dad, the universe stepped in. And I think I always say, like, if you don't take action towards like your full potential, I believe that like God will step in and like move some things around to force you. And I saw that. I've seen that with so many people, so many clients, and my dad was one of them. So he didn't have many rules for his job. He just wanted a stable job that would support his family in his career. And he would take any job that was stable and would support his family. But he had one rule that we all knew about, and he would never take a job where he was required to work on the weekends, because when he was in his 20s, he worked in supermarkets and he had to work like night shift and over the weekends, and he hated being away from his family. So that was his one rule. Well, one day he gets a call from his manager that he's going to have to start working weekends for his current job because they've changed some things around. He was like, that's it. He was like, I have to leave my job. So he was thinking about, should I retire early? What should I do? So I sneakily start researching the bus driver jobs. And I'm like, I found your job. It checked every single one of his boxes that he thought didn't exist. It was part-time. It paid more than his old job for part-time. And it paid his health insurance. I sent him, and it trained you they trained you, you did train, you got paid to get trained, and you got to use their bus. And like, it was literally something that he would have thought is just too good to be true. That saying is the most limiting thing, because what is divine, what is meant for you, it can't be too good to be true. It's real. It's waiting for you. So he now is a bus driver. He loves his job. And I share this story because I just think it's so relatable for women who might be feeling like, well, I have these dreams, but like, they're not going to work out for me. It's not possible for me. It's too good to be true. All these things, like, that desire was placed in your heart for a reason. It's meant for you. You might have to get creative. You might have to go down a few roads where you have to make a U-turn because the road's closed. That's okay. You're going to get there. Like, God isn't teasing you. And I think that is just so beautiful to remember, that it's possible for you. And that's the first step. You're not going to take action unless you believe it's possible for you. So I can talk all about action and now it's all going to work out. But until you get to that place where you're like, you know what, I can do this. And you associate more pain with being where you currently are and never achieving your full potential than the pain that might come along with the road ahead.
Yeah. And isn't it scary to think at some point we wake up in the morning and we realize that we wasted all those years in positions and jobs and relationships that we were not happy? Isn't that's the most scary for me. And I think I have the responsibility for myself and for my kids and the loved ones around me, that I am the best version of myself. And if that means I need to break old habits and cycles and get out, even though it's painful and uncertain, it's the most rewarding journey, really. And I love your energy. I mean, if I ever need a life coach or anyone that helps me in my business, I'm sure I get back to you. How can people reach you? Tell us how they can reach you, please.
You're so sweet. Thank you. My website is jaclyngallo.com, JACLYNGALLO.com. And I am on Facebook, Instagram, and TikTok. So you can follow me if you want to keep learning about this stuff that I talk about and it resonates with you. I create a lot of content. I'm on YouTube, literally content everywhere, my podcast. So come along if you want some more inspiration. And thank you. It's such a pleasure meeting with you. I resonate with everything that you talk about and your show and the whole message. So I'm really grateful that you have me.
Thank you so much. Thank you so much for your time. And guys, if you like this episode, give me a like and a review and share this episode with anyone you think needs to hear Jaclyn's inspiring story. Save also this story for later when you need a motivational boost and a reminder that you can do it. You can achieve anything you want. And something I heard from you, Jackie, online, never sell yourself short. I love that. Also, guys, make sure that you subscribe to this podcast for more inspiring stories to come. Until next time at Raw and Real with Stefanie Fernandes. Bye now. Oh, you are amazing.
That was so fun.